Welcome, everyone. If you're joining us for our Greek life session, we'll be getting started in just a minute. I know there's still some more people coming into the Zoom meeting. We are in webinar mode. If you will be using the live transcript ADA feature for the meeting, you should see a box at the top of your screen. If you prefer to hide that box, there should be a little X you can click on the top right corner. Or there may be a drop down on your screen as well. Thank you for taking time out of your Sunday to be with us. We'll give everyone one more minute. If you're an attendee joining us, welcome. We'd love to know who you are and what your interests are in this session. So unfortunately, time is not going to permit for us to get to know each other. But if you wouldn't mind perhaps putting, if you're a prospective student or a prospective parent, and your name, changing it as your name so we can see it in the participant list. That would be really helpful for all of us. And feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat as well. That will help me and our panelists here tailor the conversation to what's most interesting to all of you. And again, we'll get started in one more minute here. So I see people are starting to introduce themselves in the chat. I see Bonnie Wunsch, welcome. I see Hannah is on, prospective student. Alana and Ethan from Illinois, welcome. I see Amy Rosenberg in here. Oh, the chat is going faster than what I can keep up with. Please continue welcoming, introducing yourselves in the chat. I think we will go ahead and get started. This session is being recorded, so if you have friends who may benefit from some of the things we're going to talk about, you will be able to obtain a copy of this recording after today's session. If you have questions that are specific to your circumstances, your college application process, various schools you're interested in knowing about, we do want to try and keep this as general as possible, since we know people have so many different interests. But any of our panelists or even the Hillel at Home staff are welcome to, are certainly open to answering your questions afterwards, whether it's via email or a separate conversation, potentially even connecting you with someone else at the schools you're looking at who can best answer your questions. So just to sort of do some introductions quickly. My name is Jamie Zinn. I work at the University of Florida Hillel, and I serve as the Director of Development there. I have been working in higher education and in the Jewish nonprofit world for over 10 years. And for 10 years, I have also served as a proud national volunteer for Alpha Epsilon Phi sorority, which is the Greek organization I was a member of when I was at the University of Florida as a student. So I am back here at my alma mater. I currently serve as chapter advisor to UF's AE Phi chapter. And I am joined by 5 wonderful interfraternal world colleagues here today, many of whom we have had the opportunity to get to know over the years. And I think they will bring some very important information and perspective to both prospective students and to those prospective parents who are joining us as well, as you navigate what college will mean for you, and if Jewish Greek life has a role in your journey. So I will quickly introduce each of our panelists, and then we'll jump right into questions. We welcome questions from each of you. Again, feel free to drop those into the chat, and we will get to them. And if you have a question, again, that you might want to ask privately, you can email hillel@home@hillel.org, and they will direct your question accordingly following this session. So let's start off introducing Sydney Altfield. So Sydney is here representing Alpha Epsilon Phi sorority. She is also a volunteer, and she is a past staff member there as well. She's a graduate of the University of Central Florida, my neighbor to the south. And during her time at UCF, she served as vice president of Sisterhood, chapter president. And outside of AEFI, she was very involved with other organizations, including serving as student body vice president. And she currently lives in New York City and works for the Orthodox Union on state education policy. So welcome to Sydney. We are also joined by Jonathan Bridge from Alpha Epsilon Pi fraternity. He is AE Pi's Chief Programming Officer, so he is a full-time staff member with the organization, and he oversees the implementation of AE Pi's core program initiatives and is the main liaison to many of AE Pi's organizational partners in the Jewish and Israel space. He is a graduate of VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, and he is joining us from his hometown, or excuse me, his home now. I'm not sure if you're originally from there, John, of Delray Beach, Florida. So welcome to John. Next, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Jason Horowitz, who is here representing Zeta Beta Tau fraternity. Similar to Jonathan, Jason is also a full-time staff member at ZBT. He's the Director of Heritage Education and Partnerships. And in this role, he focuses on creating educational opportunities for brothers in the areas of Jewish and Israel programming, along with providing trainings in the spaces of combating anti-Semitism, sexual assault awareness, and hate prevention. Jason graduated in 2009 from the University of Pittsburgh, where he was also an active member of Hillel, and he completed his master's in 2015 at the Reichman University, which is formerly known as the IDC Interdisciplinary Center in Herzliya, Israel. And he has over 10 years of experience in the Jewish world, currently living in Washington, DC. So welcome to Jason. Our next guest joining us is Rabbi Andrew Paley from Dallas, Texas. Rabbi Paley serves as the senior rabbi at Temple Shalom, and he is the supreme recorder, also known as the international secretary for Sigma Alpha Mu fraternity. This is a volunteer role that he holds. And he, as I mentioned, is joining us from Dallas today. And last, but certainly not least, we have Maxine Weisenfeld joining us on behalf of Sigma Delta Tau sorority. Maxine is also a volunteer for their national organization. And she is currently pursuing graduate work right now, in addition to dedicating a lot of hours to working with their national organization and their campuses across the US. So welcome to all of our panelists. And we're going to jump right in with questions, since I know many of you are eager to start hearing about what is Jewish Greek life all about? How is it different from a non-traditional or historical Greek organization? And is this a choice I should be considering? So the first question I'm going to give to Jason, actually. Jason, speaking from your personal experience, what would you say are some of the key benefits of looking at a Jewish fraternity or a sorority when you're considering your college search process?
So thank you, Jamie, for moderating this, and thank you to everyone for being here. I think it's a really great question. When I joined ZBT my freshman year at the University of Pittsburgh, one of the things that I was looking for was an organization that had a Jewish background and Jewish brothers where I felt comfortable, but also an opportunity to grow as an individual in this organization. So what I would say is for anyone who's looking to join Jewish Greek life, I would say one of the benefits is really you already have that camaraderie. For many of you, Jewish geography probably plays a huge role in your life. It definitely plays a huge role in mine. You automatically get that when you join a Jewish Greek organization. You get that sense of comfort. And for me, it was a great experience. And for the Jewish brothers in my fraternity, it continues to be a great experience for them.
Thanks, Jason. Maxine, do you want to chime in? Especially with the volunteer perspective, but I know you have your own personal experience as well making this choice, as all of us have.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would like to just start off by saying when I came to UMass Amherst as a freshman, I had zero intention of joining Greek life. I knew nothing about Greek life. No one in my family was ever in Greek life. I think I had maybe an uncle that was involved, but other than that, it was totally unknown to myself, to my parents. And I was on campus, and the more I would start hearing about these sororities, I said, you know what, I think I want to give it a chance. And I remember my parents were just very much like, what is she doing? What is this? But now it was probably the best decision that I've ever made in my entire life was joining SDT at UMass, because from that experience, not only did I build camaraderie, but I came from a more shy background where I'm from a small town and wasn't really that confident. And then I joined this organization that was just so supportive, both of me as a person, but also me as a Jew, and really celebrating that background that I brought to the table. And I think that now, if I was joining college all over again, oh my goodness, I don't know what is happening, so sorry. But I think that now if I was joining college all over again, I think that that would be a huge push for me when I'm looking at a university, is if there is a chapter that I could feel comfortable in and that I could one day join. And I think that one day in the future, when I do have children, that will be something that I'm definitely going to be looking for.
Great. Anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, I would say also that great answers, and welcome everybody. So glad you're here. I would say also that it's important when seeking out various groups and opportunities on campus to involve yourself with that. That not only are there people who are nice and kind that you like to obviously spend time with, but that but that organization speaks to the values that you hold dear in yourself. And as you explore during the college years, which is exactly the time that you should be doing that, what those values are and to what extent you hold them, it's nice to have an organization like a Jewish fraternity and sorority that already shares certain basic language and understandings and perspectives, and from there to be able to launch deeply into that just allows for a much more comfortable and really in many ways meaningful and powerful experience.
Thanks, Rabbi Paley.
I would also jump in and say, at least the time that I was there, the UCF, University of Central Florida, was the second largest university in the nation. So there were 60,000 students, and I felt as if going to that university, I also went to a small high school growing up. I was a little apprehensive and nervous as to would I find my group of friends, would I find the place that I belonged in such a large group, in such a large school. And I also come from a background with zero Greek life in my household. So I really also did not know what I was getting myself into. And I was able to find my place in that 60,000 rush of students every single day. And it made it feel as if there was 100 students in that entire school. And not only did it feel that it was like that because of A Phi, but A Phi opened doors to opportunities for me to find that in other places as well. So it gave me a home away from home that I was comfortable with, but was also in a place that was out of my comfort zone.
Thanks, Sydney. Rabbi Paley, you mentioned something that struck me in your response just now, which was, about how the chapters, really how it, the community that it provides. And Sydney, all of you have really kind of touched on this. It can make a much bigger environment feel a lot smaller to be a part of Greek life and to be a part of a place where you can feel comfortable being Jewish. And I actually just pulled up a screenshot of something on my phone that I saw earlier this week. A student that I know through my life in Hillel at the University of Florida has a blog, and she wrote, she sort of does like ruminations on her experiences freshman year. And she wrote, "I love my traditionally Jewish sorority." This is regarding the high holidays. "It was a relief to not have meetings on any of these days. It was one less thing I had to worry about. I also had people to go to services with and who understood what I was going through." And where I'm going with this kind of leads into Alyssa's question that she just put in the Q&A here that we can see. I'm going to throw this one over to John first. We have a lot of students who think, maybe I want to do something different. Is it really that important for me to have a Jewish fraternity or sorority experience? I'm sure I can find other Jewish students to have in my life. And how we also, approach non-Jewish students. Can you speak a little bit to how your organization, and maybe even what you've observed from our colleagues here in their organizations, how do we navigate that question with, how do I decide if I need to be a part of this Jewish organization or not?
Definitely, and that's a great question, especially if you're involved in Jewish life in high school. It's a fair question. You've been doing it for 4 or 5 years, so you're looking to take the next step, and I totally understand that. What I always tell people when they ask me this question is try it, right? You're going to walk into the Jewish fraternity or sorority house, and you're going to walk into other fraternity and sorority houses, and they're going to feel different. And the difference is an intangible feeling we get when we walk into a room full of Jews. We don't have to explain who we are or why we can't come to a chapter meeting. We don't have to explain our backgrounds or things we did as a child. We get to joke about Hebrew school and summer camp and things like that. So the question is, why do you need to go Greek? And I don't want to say or Jewish Greek, it's not a need, but almost a desire that you'll feel once you see what else is out there, because the other organizations in the fraternity and sorority world are incredible. There's something different about going Greek in a Jewish way. And once you have that, which if you're asking that question now in high school, I assume you do, it's something you're going to want with you. And it's the next step really in your Jewish journey is Jewish Greek life, where you're going to get those leadership experiences. You're going to be pushed outside of your comfort zone like you never have before. You're going to be challenged intellectually, and you're going to respond, and you're going to find a lot of inspiration. And when you do that with people who already accept you and you don't have to explain yourself to, it adds another level to your fraternal and sorority experience. And so why do you need it? Come see why you need it. It'll be pretty obvious to you when you get there.
Sydney, I'm glad you took yourself off mute, because I was going to ask you a follow-up there. Go ahead.
I was going to say that I think that this also opens up another question as to what is Greek life in the sense, and what are you joining? And when you join an organization, a sorority, a fraternity, whatever the background may be, you're joining something with a set of values and a mission statement, and something that the entire group as a whole comes together to be a part of. So one of the things that when I was going through, I and one of the things that I love about A-Phi is the mission statement, is this line in the mission statement that we respect our shared heritage and traditions. And that is what tugs at me, that this whole organization, everyone that joins this organization, whether it's at UCF, whether it's at UF or wherever it may be, is joining because of the core values that that organization has, and they aligned with my values. And everyone joining had the same mission of respecting the shared heritage, whether they were Jewish or not Jewish. They joined that organization knowing that that was, I guess, the rules to play by. But that's why Jewish Greek life, I would say, is so important, because those values and those missions aligned with everything that I grew up with and everything that I wanted to continue on while I was in my college experience.
And if I could jump in real quick, Jamie,
Please.
with that, because I actually had the complete opposite, where I was kicked out of Hebrew school as a kid. So to say I was connected to the Jewish world through high school would be a leap. And what's so interesting is it still got to me because of those intangibles. I grew up in a similar background, although my Hebrew school experience may not have been the same. We had one. When you walk into a house and you see Judaica on the wall, there's a feeling you get, even though I was not actively involved. So it gets both, where those that are involved, as a lot of you are watching this call now probably are, get involved in this because it's the next thing. For me, this was the thing that got me into the Jewish world, because before that I was not so connected, to say it lightly. So that's the beauty of Jewish Greek life. You get it on both sides of that spectrum.
So Rabbi Paley, I saw you answered one of the questions, and Jason, you did as well in the chat, about membership with the non-Jewish members and Jewish members. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to read each of the organization's mission statements, though we do have them if you're interested. And I encourage everyone to visit the websites for fraternities and sororities, both nationally and locally, at the schools you or your child are interested in, including their Instagram accounts. Those are typically where you find the most information about what's going on in the chapters right now. But anyway, just a quick sentence or two. I'd love to hear what are your organizations looking for when they're recruiting members? You know, do you have to be Jewish? Do you have not as great of a chance to get into your organization if you are not Jewish? Rabbi Paley, I see you took yourself off mute, so I'll let you take the first run at this one.
Yeah, thank you. So Sigma Alpha Mu since 1953 have welcomed into our fraternity any person from a variety and wide-ranging beliefs who support and adhere to not only the Jewish history of our fraternity and the Jewish founding of our fraternity, but also the values and the pillars that we espouse. And that's really the most important thing. So that, and those things, by the way, are not separate. Those are the mission statement, all the key elements are woven together with Jewish sensibilities, so that our identity is not, Jewish thing over here, and then we do this other thing over here. It's very much a part of the very fabric of what we do. And in the various ranks, for example, we have a national chaplain that's a rabbi. That's it helps to further lay out the kind of framework of our ideas. The fact that there are non-Jews who would seek a Jewish fraternity, I think says a lot about those fraternities and the values that are key, as Sydney was talking about before. That speaks a language to a lot of people, even if they may not have, even if they're not Jewish. And we don't shy away from talking about Jewish issues. And when I went to a big school, I went to Ohio State, and actually Phi lived right behind us, and we would have Shabbat dinner together. And so while there may have been non-Jews around, they understood the environment and were very supportive of that. And we're as transparent and forthcoming as we need to be to make sure people understand this is who we are, and we're proud of that, and we welcome you into that to add men of character into our ranks. And it has for sure strengthened and deepened relationships at the chapter level, certainly at the national level as well. So, and our national president is not Jewish, but who understands the responsibility that he has to carry the mantle of a Jewish fraternity. It's a little bit more daunting for him, but he's done that, and I think it speaks volumes to who we are and what we're about. So
I want to chime in. You mentioned doing Shabbat dinner together with the AE Phi chapter at your school, the Ohio State University. I've learned my lesson. Don't the is very important. Just to respond to some of that, and also to respond to some of the questions in the chat. As much as the chapters are part of their national organizations, each chapter really does have a unique feel and flavor based on the campus environment as well. There is certainly a different feel depending on if it's an urban school versus a suburban campus. If it's a big football school, that might dictate some of the fraternity and sorority activities on a Saturday than if you're not at a big football school. And all of these things are questions that we encourage you and your students, or if they have friends who go to that school, to ask about very openly when they are doing their college tours, or when they are deciding if they want to go through the process of joining a fraternity or sorority. Someone else asked a quick question just to address that. I'm trying to get through some of the chat and also some of the questions that I know we had talked about making sure we covered. All of the chapters, it really varies across the board in terms of housing arrangements. Not every fraternity and sorority has a live-in facility. Some chapters will have a suite on the campus, for example. Their campus may not allow any residential living facilities for fraternities and sororities. Some of them do have big, large houses, like you'll see at schools like Michigan, Wisconsin, Florida, even UCF. And other schools may not have any residential component to their fraternity and sorority system. So again, that really goes down to the local level of the campuses you're looking at. I'm gonna go to the next question, but I did see there was a request for talking a little bit about the geography of where some of the schools are. So if you do have questions about that, feel free to maybe put them in the chat, the kinds of schools you're looking at. Where, if you want to mention specific schools by name, feel free. We do want to try and keep it more broad and general, but if we have time, we will try and address some of that. So going on to the next question, Rabbi Paley, you mentioned having Shabbat dinner. We've mentioned being mission-oriented, values-driven organizations. And we are membership-based as fraternities and sororities. Hillel, on the other hand, is not a membership-based organization. I'm often asked when I do parent programming, how does my child join Hillel? There is no joining. It's come along as you may, drop in here and there. And I think the beauty of some of that is the partnerships that have emerged between Hillel and fraternities and sororities on various campuses who do occasionally partner together. Jason, I'd love for you to maybe take the first run at talking a bit about the relationship between ZBT and the local campus Hillels on some of your campuses that you know about.
Yeah, absolutely. So ZBT has a strong relationship with many Hillels across the country, University of Florida being one of them. We also partner, I know this is a Hillel call, but we also have our chapters partnering with Chabad on different campuses. So the ones that come to mind, I know at the University of Pittsburgh, when I was an undergraduate, we partnered with Hillel doing Shabbat dinners, doing volunteer work with them. We continue to partner with Hillels at the University of Maryland, at the University of Miami, we're going to be going back to in the spring. So we have a nice relationship with Hillel there. So University of Memphis, I will say University of Memphis is one of our non-Jewish chapters, and they're very active with the Hillel there. So for all of the parents out there who are worried that their child may be joining a chapter that doesn't have a lot of Jewish brothers, that shouldn't stop them from being active and partnering with local Hillels on campus. Students supporting Israel, I think, is the question that I'm seeing. I think I can't speak for the other organizations, but I think that's very much chapter dependent in terms of working with other campus organizations like Students Supporting Israel or Hasbara Fellowships or Stand With Us. The opportunities are there. We certainly offer them to these organizations, but it's very much chapter dependent.
Maxine, I'd love for you to chime in and talk a little bit about Sigma Delta Tau's relationships with Hillels or other Jewish partners on campuses and what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So something that you mentioned, Jamie, is that a lot of what our organizations are the chapter based and the membership based and what the members are interested in. And I think as an overall theme, I do see that on a lot of our campuses, there is a very strong connection with the local Hillel or the local Chabad. I know for a fact, specifically at my alma mater, UMass Amherst, a lot of the members in the chapter were very interested in getting involved with Hillel. The Hillel building is actually directly across the street from the Sigma Delta Tau house. So that was always very, very convenient. But overall, I would say that Hillel has always been making a great effort across the board on all of the campuses that we're on to really make a connection with the local chapters. I know, for example, when I served as Panhellenic president as an undergrad and when I was on my chapter executive board, the local Hillel at UMass was always the first ones to ask me, how can we help? How can we be of service to your chapter? They let me host a huge philanthropy event in their building. They let me host meetings when I couldn't get a space on campus last minute. So I think that those relationships have been building over the years and we continue to see them building between the Hillel, between the Chabad. We currently do a lot of programming on a national level with other Jewish organizations as well as other Jewish fraternities and sororities. We have had in the past some great programming on a national level with Phi, which we hope to continue doing, and it's been great to see. And other than that, we have national new member programming through the Gelt Foundation. We have relationships with other organizations such as BBYO. So it's just been really awesome to see these connections. And on a campus level, a lot of times it comes from the interests of the members, but even the non-Jewish members who see their Jewish members getting involved with Hillel or with other Jewish causes, I've often seen will then want to join in and want to learn more and say, you know, if there's anti-Semitism on campus, how can we help our Jewish sisters? So I think that, you know, these connections have been building and we keep seeing them building.
Thanks, Maxine.
Can I jump into that question?
Please, John, go ahead.
Yeah, so my main job at AEPI headquarters is working with partnerships, as Jamie said, and the way AEPI looks at partnerships is how, you know, we're a mission-driven organization, so how do these partnerships enhance our chances of meeting our mission and, you know, meeting our impact goals of building Jewish peoplehood, a strong identity, knowledge around holidays. And so we partner with people on campus, we partner with community members, with national organizations, but anyone we partner with has to in some way benefit the undergraduate's experience for them. And that's extremely important to us as we get, again, most of my day is dealing with partners looking for AEPI members to go on their trips and do their programs and why their education is the best. And all of these organizations are incredible, but I have to, you know, make sure that it's going to be beneficial to the undergrad as well. And so that's something else about the partnerships is we're strategic in making sure that the partnerships are beneficial for the brothers as well.
I would also jump in. I know we spoke a little bit about some having houses, some sororities or fraternities not having houses. When I was at the University of Central Florida, we did not have a house. Currently today, the sisterhood does have a house. And so while I was there, we did not have a house. So there was always Hillel and Chabad and these other organizations that opened up their homes and their spaces. That was just an automatic, you know, partnership there. So having that was, especially hosting events and doing all these things, having that partnership there. But also now that they do have a house, and was a traveling consultant, seeing how other campuses do it. Chabad, Hillel, they come to the house. It's an open door policy both ways. They're in the house doing programming with the girls, with the women, and they are partnership goes both ways. So it was a beautiful thing to see how the partnership grew from having a house, from not having a house to having a house, and how even with one or the other, the partnership was it's still strong, and something that probably, like John said, it enhances our mission as a chapter.
Thanks, Sydney. So something, the elephant in the room that keeps coming up in almost every conversation I'm a part of with parents, and particularly prospective students and even alumni, is about anti-Semitism on campus. And I don't think any campus is immune to it right now in the United States, unfortunately. And from my experience being at the University of Florida and having previous experience I've worked at Washington University in St. Louis, and I've also worked at the George Washington University in DC. The campuses, the Hillels, the fraternities and sororities, it really comes down to their work together. It really comes down to their work together to build strong communities and networks of Jewish and non-Jewish students who will not tolerate these actions. And when these things happen, they feel connected enough and supportive enough, particularly in the Jewish community, to know that they know where to turn to. They know that either their Hillel or their chapter president, if they're in a Jewish sorority or fraternity, has a connection with the local Anti-Defamation League representative. They know how to communicate all of this to campus administration, to local law enforcement. And I think as I've been working with students over the past several years, they really do look for that network to be a part of, and it's critical for combating anti-Semitism, anti-Israel sentiments on campus, and all of those sorts of things that we don't want to be seeing, and sadly are coming up more and more often. So associating with Hillel, associating with a Jewish fraternity or a sorority really builds up that network on our campuses. Rabbi Paley, I'll let you chime in. I saw you took yourself off mute.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make sure, and thank you for saying, thank you for saying that and adding that last piece, because I think a lot of experience. I have two kids, or one now is still in college and one just graduated, and sometimes the anti-Semitism is overt and obvious, but sometimes it gets hidden in discussions about Israel, and the anti-Israel sentiment gets blurry on some campuses with the anti-Semitism sentiment. And when Jewish students try to work through the Israel questions, which for some they're still working through and wondering what their relationship is and so on, it's a little bit confounding to talk also about, wait, there's clearly this anti-Semitic sentiment going on as well. And just like you said, knowing that there is a safe place from which to sort of kind of regroup and do some thinking and find support. Hillel, of course, is the welcome, safe space to be able to do that, and I encourage everybody to find that place to do that. But also, on the local interfraternity councils at the campuses, to raise these kinds of issues and to be fostering relationships that support. And that support each other, and condone all kinds of behavior. I think fraternities and sororities have a very important voice on campus to be leaders in this way, to demonstrate that we will not tolerate anti-Semitism, that we will not tolerate prejudice and these terrible things that sometimes campuses, in the name of higher education and ivory tower and all of that, seem to foment. It's kind of weird and sad in that way, and that there are allies and that there are support networks for that. And by the way, depending on where you are, there are also local alumni that can be of support. And if there are synagogues or local community assets would be more than happy and willing to lend their voice and support as well.
Can I jump in as well on this?
Go ahead, John.
We just did a survey with AE Phi where we surveyed over 1,000 college students with the Louis D. Brandeis Center about anti-Semitism. The survey came back as we thought. It wasn't great. Where 60% of our students have expressed the desire to hide their Jewish identity out of fear of, being exiled or ridiculed. And I deal with this from AE Pi side. I've talked to 15 different schools in North America this year that have faced things against AE Pi directly or AE Pi brothers. And the big thing that I always say is the way we combat anti-Semitism is we don't let it win. And the way you let anti-Semitism win is when you put your chai inside, your shirt, even though you want to wear it outside, or things like that. And some examples where we've had mezuzahs ripped off our houses, and then we'd send 30 more mezuzahs to put up. We've had Israeli flags ripped out of our houses. We've sent 30 Israeli flags to put back up. Just this past year, swastikas spray painted at our Cal Poly Slow House. They raised over $20,000 in 3 days for Jewish organizations. So Rutgers, same thing. Our house got egged during the Holocaust Remembrance event. They raised $5,000 in a day for Jewish organizations. So we can't stop someone from being anti-Semitic. That's not something that we can do. What we can do as organizations, as through partnerships and through our own headquarters, is be there for our students and make sure they're still proud to be Jewish at the end of the day, even though sometimes it is not the easiest. But we're here for them. And every time I've talked to a student, we'll send them shirts, we'll send them whatever we have to make sure that pride is still within them. And I think that's the key. So when anti-Semitism occurs and Jewish pride goes up, that's a win in my book and in AE Pi's book.
Thanks, John. And Jason, I think ZBT has been involved with a couple of other Jewish fraternities and sororities, some of whom are on this call, in figuring out how, from a national perspective, we can be supporting students who are on the ground, working to figure out what their response is when they are victims of an anti-Semitic attack, whether it's blatant or overt. Do you want to just talk about that just for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to sort of echo what Rabbi Paley and John said, anti-Semitism happens on campus. Unfortunately, it's not going away anytime soon. And all the organizations on this call, we support each other when those issues happen. John, you mentioned what happened at San Luis Obispo. I know our chapter really wanted to come and support your chapter, and we ended up leading anti-Semitism training for our chapter because they're not a Jewish member chapter. But one of the things that we're working on, many of the organizations on this call, is our Summit Against Hate. And what we've realized is that a lot of our campus Greek life offices and campus professionals outside of the Jewish base, they don't really know how to respond to anti-Semitic incidents on campus or how to support Jewish students who are facing anti-Semitism. So we are hosting a 3-week or 3-day training session for Jewish or for campus professionals, mainly in Greek life, but also anyone on campus can join, to teach them about the history of anti-Semitism, why it's still important to combat it, and how to be allies to our Jewish students when those incidents occur. So we have about 150, 175 campus pros who are going to be on these trainings to learn skills about how to support Jewish students when they have anti-Semitism happen. And in addition, we're going to have Jewish students who have experienced anti-Semitism on campus speak to these professionals and tell them directly what they need to feel safe on campus. So we're really excited about that. And we're really excited that there are people on campus across the country who want to be allies to Jewish students on campus at a time where sometimes it feels like we don't have any.
And I just wanted to add, thank you, Jason, to that ZBT, Sigma Alpha Mu, AE Phi, and SDT are the Summit Against Hate is actually happening next week, actually. And so this is the fifth time that professionals like this across the system have come together to talk about this. So it's really a really important time.
Thanks, Rabbi Paley. Thanks, Jason. And it is an award-winning program. I should mention that. So we have a couple of more minutes together, and I kind of want to do a rapid fire Q&A for some of the things that have come into the chat and some other things that I know we had discussed in advance that might be relevant to bring up as well. So if I may put Sydney on the spot for a second, you're in the hot seat. Someone asked in the chat about if a school you're interested in does not have the fraternity, the Jewish fraternity or sorority you're interested in joining. I know this is also sometimes hard for those who have members in their family and they're hoping to continue that tradition. What do you recommend?
So what I would recommend is, I mean, if you want to go and start your own chapter, you're already a leader to start, so you belong in one of these chapters. But I would also say that every organization on this panel has a different way of starting a chapter. So depending on whether you're looking for a sorority, a fraternity, A, Pi, ZBT, SDT, SAMI, whatever it may be, you have to, I would reach out to that organization directly because what A Phi does is going to be completely different what A Pi does, what ZBT does, what SDT does, and so forth. So make sure that you take the time to research how to do that. And if there is enough interest between you and other people on the campus, I'm more than sure that every organization on this panel would be more than happy to speak with you and talk you through on how to best do that for that organization. Also, not only is it based on the organization, it is based on the school that you go to. So every school has a different way of bringing on new organizations and new chapters, whether it be a Jewish organization or not. So there's a little bit more nuances to it than just showing up one day with a sign and saying that you've started a chapter, but all the power to you. That means that you belong here.
Thank you. The question about hazing came up. I will just say on behalf of all of us, all of our organizations are non-hazing organizations. Our members engage both from the national level and from the local university levels in anti-hazing training regularly. New members are required to go through additional specific training at many of our universities as well. And if there ever are any issues of hazing, and hazing is not just, alcohol or physical, it is also mental, and all of our organizations take that very seriously. So if you know of someone who has experienced something where someone who is a new member is being asked or required or mandated to do something that would cause physical, mental, emotional harm, that is hazing. And all of us have ways of handling that, usually in partnership with university leadership as well, if we do suspect chapters are engaging in this behavior. The other thing that came up, we've talked a bit about interacting with local Hillels on campus. Our organizations, though, I think it's worth mentioning, are not religious organizations. We do have members who participate in regular worship. We do have members who may be keeping kosher. There was a question in the chat, though, that I'm curious for some of you to address. Maybe Maxine, you can take this one as well. If you are an observant, Shabbat observant specifically student, how easy is it to be a part of the Greek system?
So I think what makes most of our organizations really unique on that sense is that we're really sensitive to the needs of more religious students. As somebody myself who comes from a modern Orthodox background, that was definitely a concern when I was joining Greek life. But I think that what's really awesome about these organizations, specifically the ones here on this call, is that we are very sensitive to those who wish to observe and also those who wish to not observe. And I think that a lot of this is very chapter based on, what the culture of that campus is, if there are a lot of more religious Jews or not. But I think that as a general statement that I feel that I can make on behalf of myself and my organization is really that we are respectful, we are sensitive to the needs of those who want to join, and we're there to create a safe space for Jewish students and non-Jewish students alike to come together and really be part of something amazing and build these amazing leadership skills. And it's really based on values. You know, if our values are to support one another, and SDT specifically, we strive for justice and to fight inequality. And for that, you know, being there for those who want to be more observant or less observant to come together and work together, we have to be respectful of one another. And I think that that's something that I've seen across the board with most of our organizations, is really just that respect aspect, that sensitivity aspect, and just really being open to what a student wants to participate in and when.
Thank you. So another quick rapid fire question that I would ask. Talk to me for a second, maybe Sydney, we'll start with you. Talk to me about AE Phi's philanthropic efforts in like one sentence.
Sure. So we have two philanthropies. We have Sharsheret, which in Hebrew means chain or link, and it is a breast cancer organization where they link other women with breast cancer to other women, and making sure that they have the support system that they need. It was actually founded by Rochelle Schwartz, who was an alum, became an AE Phi older. We inducted her, and she was a clerk for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was also an AE Phi back in her college days. And our second organization is the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation, who Elizabeth Glaser also was an AE Phi. We keep it very close to the family here, and that is an organization working to eradicate pediatric AIDS. And the way that chapters across the nation do things for these organizations is completely different, but all for the goal for these two organizations. And it's amazing to see the things that these chapters do to raise money, to volunteer. Some people do marathons in Sharsheret's name, and it runs the gamut, but it's all for the same two causes.
Thank you. I would encourage everyone, as I mentioned before, to look at the national websites for each of our organizations and any other fraternity or sorority you might be interested in looking at the campuses you're applying to or planning to attend. And each of our organizations have very strong philanthropic partnerships and relationships, and it's a significant part of what we do. And as Sydney mentioned, we also like to keep it close to home, supporting Jewish causes, supporting causes that have impacted our members, whether they're current members or alumni as well. I know AE Pi several years ago was looking to raise, I think it was $100,000 for 10 different philanthropic efforts, which they successfully achieved. And we're very proud of the work that our members do.
I also want to jump in really quickly. So obviously every organization has their two philanthropies that, or one, or whatever, a few, whatever it may be. But I know I can speak on behalf of all of the organizations here that all of our members at universities are very involved with other philanthropic organizations on campus. I know a lot of our dance marathons, and I'm sure at least all of our organizations, one chapter somewhere holds the largest, the winner of that dance marathon. But an amazing thing, like we spoke about earlier, is that it's a very mission-driven organizations that these are, and that being, and it's a Jewish value of giving back and being philanthropic and tikkun olam. So not only do we encourage our members to do that within our chapters, but to do it outside of our chapters and on campuses, whatever that philanthropic endeavor may be.
Thanks, Sydney. So we do need to move toward wrapping up, and I would love for each of you to answer one last question, which is, what advice would you give to someone who is deciding if they should go Jewish Greek, we'll call it? Rabbi Paley, can I start with you?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Look, I think it's absolutely, first of all, is the answer. And I think we would all give that same answer. And the reasons, many of which have already been talked about and discussed here, that in addition to finding people that you like to be around and you like to find comfort and camaraderie in addition to finding an organization that supports the values that you support and allows you growth opportunities in leadership and education and networking and all of those things. On top of that, there is this added element of speaking a language and understanding your peers that Jewish organizations, Jewish fraternities and sororities can provide that no other organization in the same way can do. And the combination of all of those elements of fellowship, of friendship, of learning and leadership, and nurturing and supporting and developing your Jewish identity and endeavors as well makes Jewish fraternities and sororities a natural when, especially at a big place, when you're trying to find a corner of that universe that fits with who you are and what you're all about. And I encourage everyone to start there. And I have a hunch that if you start there, you're going to finish there also.
Thanks, Rabbi Paley. John?
Yeah, this is kind of going back what I said earlier, and this is kind of in general, not just about Jewish Greek life, but anything you're going to try on campus. That's what college is for. Go stretch your imagination, do things you never thought you'd want to do or thought you'd be good at or interested in because it might surprise you. Explore your Judaism in different ways, join different Jewish organizations, ask those tough questions. And when it comes to Jewish Greek life, it's another one of those questions, right? So go try it, go see it for yourself. There's no harm in going and meeting people and see if it's for you, because I have a hunch, and I think all of us do, and it's not just because we all joined, but likely it will be for you, because that's what these organizations are designed for. And with API specifically, we say we're designed for the best college man speaking, Jewish college man seeking the best college experience. So if that's you and you want to come check it out, then the door is open.
Thanks, John. Maxine?
I really can't express this enough, but I feel that especially with this group right here and with these organizations, I truly feel that these are the types of organizations that will support you on a professional level, on a Jewish level, a spiritual level, and just anything that you need. There's this incredible network with these traditionally Jewish fraternities and sororities where I've seen it time and time again where people just work together, people reach out to alumni from the various organizations. There's this amazing camaraderie amongst our organizations on a national level and a chapter level. And, I just think that as a Jewish student or as somebody looking to either explore their Judaism or just grow professionally, Jewishly in this world, I just think that there is such an amazing network and connection that these organizations, specifically here on this call, work together to build.
Jason?
So I just want to echo what John and Rabbi Paley and Maxine, and I'm sure what Sydney will say. But one thing that I will add is that you're not just joining a Jewish Greek organization for 4 years, you're joining for life. When you graduate from these organizations or from college, you have an active alumni network. And I would say for all of our organizations, a very strong Jewish alumni network. So there are going to be opportunities for you when you graduate to connect with brothers and sisters who are alumni professionally, and that will also take you a long way as well. And I think that's very important to understand when you're joining, again, not just 4 years, but for life.
Thanks, Jason. Sydney?
I'm not going to take up any more time because everyone said it so eloquently. But what I will say is 4 out of the 6 people on this panel do not get paid to do this. And so even the people that do get paid to do this dedicate their lives to this. So take it as you may, but we're here obviously for a reason, and that we care so much, which means that it has impacted our lives in the best of ways. And you've also learned that we all have come from different backgrounds. We've come from backgrounds where we had Jewish instilled with us from the very beginning. Judaism instilled with us from the beginning. Some of us didn't make it past Hebrew school, but we all ended up into a Jewish organization. And I think that just goes to show that you kind of always go back to your roots and what you're comfortable with and the values that you have grown with. And no matter whatever that looks like on that campus that you're going to, you're still going to get what we've spoken about today, whether there's a house or there's no house, whether there's 500 people in the chapter, whether there's 8 people in the chapter. Phi and all these organizations may look different, but it's all the same organization with the same values and the same mission and the same purpose.
Thanks, Sydney. So I will just quickly wrap up and add that making sure you keep in mind this is a lifetime commitment. It's not just 4 years or 3 years. It's a lifetime commitment. Some organizations have ritual based in other religions and traditions, and it's something to think about if that's going to be a comfortable situation for you or not. There's still diversity in Jewish fraternities and sororities. Even if a vast majority of members identify as Jewish, check a box that says they're Jewish. So we do hope as all of you go off on your college searches, you will consider looking at Jewish fraternities and sororities on your campuses, considering going Greek. Please visit our websites for each of our organizations. And just a special thank you to Emma Del Sol and Oren Pershing, who are behind the scenes from Hillel International, making this webinar possible. Thank you to Bonnie Wunsch, who's the longtime executive director of Phi sorority, for helping bring this group together. Thank you for inviting me to be the moderator, and thank you to all of our panelists and to all of you for taking time to be with us about this topic tonight. If you have any further questions, you can email hillel@home@hillel.org, and they will get you connected to one of us or the best person to answer your question. So good luck, and we hope to see you on campuses this fall.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.